Hello Bookish friends, welcome to my September wrap-up part 2. In this video I will talk about the 6 books that I finished in the second half of September. Like I did in my previous wrap-ups, I will insert the clips that I've recorded very soon after I finish those works. Today is the 17th of September and I finished the book that I was reading along with great friends from the Pniora project hosted by Pat. The Angel of History by Rabih Alameddine. This book follows Yemeni-born Jacob, his life over the course of one night in the waiting room of a psych clinic. And we see his maternal upbringing in an Egyptian warehouse to his adolescence under the aegis of his wealthy father, and his life as a gay Arab man in San Francisco at the height of the AIDS epidemic. All the while, Jacob is taunted mercilessly by the presence of alluring Satan, who urges him to remember his painful past, and Death, who urges him to forget and give up. As you can guess from the Goodreads synopsis of the book, it was quite an interesting book to read. However, this was not an easy book for me to read as well. I struggled with the multiple timelines as well as multiple points of view structure. I actually do like a multiple timeline structure, but this was too much. There were also very quick viewpoint changes, which made it hard for me to follow, but especially in the longer sections. And when Jacob was talking about his past, both in Cairo and also in San Francisco, I was very much moved by the emotional scenes in the book. And I could not help but feel sorry for Jacob, who was clearly suffering from the survival's guilt because he survived the AIDS. Last but not least, I very much enjoyed the messages that we shared in the Dexter group, which actually helped me to understand the book better. Although this book was not a success for me, I cannot wait for the time that we will choose our next book and read it. Overall, I gave The Angel of History by Rabih Alameddine a 6 out of 10. The second book that I finished was the first book in Witch Lore series by Hazel, Beck, Small Town Big Magic. And in this book, we follow Emerson, a bookseller who adores the small town that she lives in. As a very type A person, along with her very loyal friend group, she tries to organize events and do the best for the sake of Saint Cyprian, the small town that she lives in. But one day, she discovers that they are all witches, and Emerson herself is also a witch who has been stripped of her memories 10 years ago. When Amy and I decided to choose a series, we both felt like reading a fantasy series. And this series, although it had elements of romance in it, is fundamentally a fantasy series. The best parts of the book were actually about the world building and how the magic system works. Because Emerson remembered nothing about her past as well as the magical background, we learned about those things step by step along with Emerson, which was, I think, a very clever move by the author. The writing style was also quite good. The characters were quite complex, and with the exception of few, were quite three-dimensional, because the following books will be about the other friends in the group. Although I've grown to like Emerson towards the end, I have to say Emerson was my least favorite member of the group, because she was so type A and always tried to control what was happening all around her, including her friends. And I was fond of her romance with Jacob, but not very much invested, to be honest. The next books will follow the characters that I liked better than Emerson. I'm also quite curious about the town's magic system and how it works. And Amy felt exactly the same about the book. I decided to continue with the rest of Witch Lore series. and I gave Small Town Big Magic by Hazel Beck a 7 out of 10. Today is the 22nd of September, and I finished the book that I was buddy reading with Loretta, which was the 7th book in Dexter series, Dexter's Final Cut by Jeff Lindsay. We have been buddy reading this series in honor of Alice, who sadly passed away last year. We both added this series to our TBR because of a recommendation video by Alice. Since it is so far into the series, I cannot give a detailed synopsis of the book. However, I can say that Dexter and his sister Deborah are both tasked with counseling two actors for a TV series. Deborah becomes the advisor of a young, very beautiful actress, whereas Dexter becomes the advisor for handsome young actor Robert. A series of murders with a very unusual method does happen, and it looks like the intended target is the young actress Jackie. Dexter and Deborah both become involved in this mystery. This was another decent addition to the series in terms of thriller. Mystery was quite complex, but not as sophisticated as the other murders in the series. But since we were in the 7th book in the series, both Loretta and I were very much invested in all of the characters, and we were sympathetic to the characters in one scene, annoyed with them in another, and especially towards the end, very anxious for their health in many sections of the book. And last but not least, Jeff Lindsay's writing style was excellent again. The fact that this mystery was a little bit less complex made so much sense when we evaluate what the characters went through. So overall, this was a quite pleasant reading experience for me, and I loved exchanging messages back and forth with Loretta. So I gave Dexter's Final Cut by Jeff Lindsay a 8 out of 10. Today is the 24th of September, and I finished the book that I was reading for Shorty September, and also for reading one category romance each month for the category romance online book club. The book that I read was An Offer She Can't Refuse by Emma Darcy. In this book, we follow Tina, who had a steamy affair with Ari 6 years ago in Australia, and when he left her to return to Greece, he did not say anything about their future. After Tina became pregnant, she decided not to raise her son as a single mother. But when Tina sees Ari after 6 years with another woman in Dubai, she decides to tell him about her son as a revenge. However, she did not know that her sister would marry Ari's cousin in the following week. Because of the title, I had a different expectation for this book. I thought this book would have my favorite trope, secret marriage or faked marriage. But the book was more focused on the secret baby trope, which is a trope that I do not care for. Although some of the scenes, especially towards the end, was quite good. For most of the book, I found Tina to be a bit annoying character. This was a mediocre book for me, and I gave An Offer That She Can't Refuse by Emma Darcy a 6 out of 10. Today is the 29th of September, and I finished another book for Series September. Mrs. McGinty is Dead by Agatha Christie. This book belongs to Hercule Poirot series, and it was my first time reading this one. In this book, Hercule Poirot, with the suggestion of his inspector friend, looks into the case of a brutally murdered landlady, and her lodger, James Bentley, is found guilty because most of the evidence points at him. However, the inspector thinks that James Bentley does not seem like a murderer. And intrigued by this suspicion of his friend, Hercule Poirot goes to stay in the small town that Mrs. McGinty lived in. At first he thinks that the verdict could have been right. However, with the discovery of an old newspaper clipping, he gradually discovers the past secrets of the residents in this town. This book had a really good mystery. I could guess the killer only just a few pages before it was revealed to us. The inclusion of Ariadne Oliver and Inspector Spence as the side characters, I think, enriched the book in a better way, because Poirot's interactions with both of these characters were quite delightful to read, and the suspicious characters in the small town were much more complex than most of the characters in other Agatha Christie books. Overall, like many of the Agatha Christie books, the reading experience of this book was great, and I gave Mrs. McGinty's Death by Agatha Christie an 8 out of 10. Today is the 30th of September and I finished the book that I chose for my in-person book club, which was Vejeteryan by Kang. And this book consists of 3 separate sections from 3 different points of view. However, following 4 characters. Actually, our main character, Yang Ho, does not have a voice in this book. And everything changes when Yang He started having brutal dreams consisting of violence and blood, which makes her to renounce eating meat altogether. And in the first section, we follow her husband's point of view, right after she decides to become vegetarian. In the second section, we follow the brother-in-law who is quite obsessed with her. And in the last section, we follow the point of view of her sister. In the later years, that Yang He decided to become vegetarian. This book has been on my radar for a while, and my friends who read the book said that it was very suitable for a book club, and that was why I chose to present this book. After reading the book, I certainly agree with my friends. There are lots of things to discuss with readers who read this book. Although the theme of violence, both within a person and around herself, is very prominent, as well as the place of women in society. Yang He's absence of power over deciding what to do with her life and her body. There are also lots of things to consider in this book. This book received many awards and can clearly see why, because the book is written very well, although it is a bit raw, and it is certainly not for the faint-hearted readers. I like the decision that the author made about deciding to tell the story of a woman from 3 very different points of view, but not from her point of view, which actually made the book quite fascinating to read. Certainly cannot wait to discuss the book with my friends on our meeting, which will happen next week. Overall, this was a book that impressed me a lot. If I could give a book 8.5, I would have given it. Of course, I will round it to 9 out of 10. Therefore, I gave Vejeteryan by Kang a 9 out of 10. So those were my thoughts about the 6 books that I finished in the second half of September. Please comment down below. Have you read any of the books that I mentioned in this video? And what did you think of them? If you're a new viewer, first of all, welcome. Please like and subscribe. Hope to see you very soon. Bye. For Turkish word of the day, I'm going to choose refuse. Refuse means reddetmek in Turkish, and reddetmek is our Turkish word of the day. Have a good day.